to the King's Court. I'm your podcast host, King Roberto. If you haven't listened before, welcome. You might enjoy this. You might not. Might leave thinking that was the greatest podcast you've ever listened to, but I highly doubt it. If this is your first podcast, first trip around the 30 minutes with King here, I encourage you to go back and listen to season 1. Listen to everything before this one. If you like them, I always welcome you to send me a message, an email or a DM on Instagram or X or on the YouTube page. Whatever your choice is, I will get it and eventually respond to you because I'm not very good at responding to everybody who sends me a message. In fact, the truth be told, one person has sent me a message, and that was my grandson, Lewis, that said, "When can I be on the podcast?" Well, your time's coming, buddy. It's only a few more away now. It will be in season 2, and we will have Lewis. But coming to you tonight from the Modified King's Lair. Yes, the Modified King's Lair is where we've been recording the podcast for the last several months, while the OG King's Lair, a.k.a. the travel trailer, sits closed up for winter. About ready to break that baby out, though. Take it for its first spring camping trip. We haven't been camping in a while, but get that King's Lair loosened up and ready to go, and move the podcast back out of the exercise room here, a.k.a. the Modified King's Lair, down to the OG King's Lair, which is where it belongs because, you know, that's my rolling kingdom down there, right? That is where it all began, and nothing like getting back home. You know, speaking of getting back home, you look around the gym here, and you got all these reminders of a bunch of hard work that's left to be done, and trying to better your everything, you know, your health, your body, your mind. And it got me thinking, you know, the other morning when I was working out, what does a normal evening in King Roberto's court actually look like? And I gotta say, being next to the door here, you never know who's listening on the other side of the door. It's kind of creepy sometimes because sometimes Nikki will be out there and be like, I'm gonna eavesdrop on the podcast. That's why I like the OG King's Lair too. You know what? It's private. Nobody's eavesdropping down there. But yeah, on to the episode here. What does a normal evening in the court actually look like? Well, I mean, truth be told, it's probably not a lot different than your normal evening. You know, everybody's got the same pattern during the week, right? You get up, go to work, come home, go to sleep. Get up, go to work, comes home, go to sleep. And that repetitive pattern is the base of most adulthood. Most adults who work anyways. You know, I'm not talking about the ones who are fortunate enough to be, you know, the stay-at-home dad or the stay-at-home mom who have a breadwinner that can support the both of you, or much less the both of you in a family. I don't know how people do that in today's day and age, but we both work, and it's rewarding in its own way, but at the same time, it is monotonous. And that's where you get the end of the day, you come home and you wind down, right? But do you really? Because I know for me, when I get home, my mind is still working. You know, still thinking about that last thing that didn't get done at the office, or something that is still lingering out there that maybe it's not fully resolved. And those are the worst. Those are absolutely the worst. I really try hard not to leave those hanging because it'll actually wake me up in the middle of the night. You know, wake up at 2:30 in the morning like, I got an idea. And then I've had nights where I wake up in the morning and I have to send myself an email or a text reminder of this was the idea that you thought of at 2:30 in the morning when you were sleeping, dreaming about work. That's my favorite thing ever. But I mean, there's more than work going through the head. You know, you get home and maybe have a soda or something, have dinner, and start to relax and let down. And, you know, work kind of gives way to all the other honeydew list or my project list. It's not really a honeydew list because I don't really have much on that, Most of the honeydews, I try to knock those out pretty quick, and I work on the King's list because it's a much more fun list than the honeydew list. I don't want to do laundry all the time. I like to do stuff like build stalls or build fences or something fun like that. But yeah, it doesn't stop. Once you get through dinner or something, you're like, well, got this project to do, that project to do. And, my brain never really shuts off until 8:30 at night in the evenings when I get a chance to sit down. Because, those 10-minute jobs seem to have a way to turning into 2-hour jobs. And even when the work is done, the mind keeps building and it's constantly thinking about what is the next project? What is the next King's project? What, not necessarily project as far as work, but what is the next thing to do around the house? Because I get home and I don't slow down. I don't really take a break. I get home, have some dinner, say hello, spend maybe 10 minutes on a good night. When the sun's shining, there's stuff to do because let's face it, you make hay when you can. And in the winter, when the days are shorter, it's a little bit more relaxed. But in the summertime or when the day springs forward like it did this last weekend, man, it's light out until 7 o'clock at night right now. You can get a lot done when you're getting home at 5:30. It's an hour and a half of light. You can drill at least 10 fence posts in that time and get the posts in the ground. You might not get them all poured in the concrete, but you can at least get the holes drilled and the posts in the ground ready for concrete the next night. And then the next night, if you got another hour and a half, I know that you can get some concrete poured. And that's pretty much the way it works around here. Most nights are go, go, go. Except for Friday nights, podcast nights, and sometimes Sunday evenings. Sometimes. I'm not the best at taking Sundays off. I should be, but I'm not. I do make time for the podcast, which is the night off, but truly, is it? I mean, I'm thinking about the podcast. What am I going to record? What's this episode going to be about? What are we going to tell the people who are the loyal listeners who want to know what is going on with King Roberto this week? Yes, I know there's 22 of you out there, but what about the other 438 that are waiting in the wings? They need to know what's going on, right? It goes and goes and goes. But that's how every night goes around here. We have this area in the backyard, though, that has become one of my favorite spots on the property. And speaking of the property, we bought this as bare land and built the house, built the barn, built everything on the property. It was nothing out here except a well when we bought it. And we've had a few properties before. And my kids will vouch for the fact that there was a property that they lived in when they were little that I swear was haunted. It just had weird vibes. One night my wife woke up and there swears that there was a guy standing in the doorway of the hall looking into our master bedroom, just staring, but not moving. The kids will say that area was haunted. I think it was old Indian stuff going on around there. I don't know. We came home one time and there were pictures off the wall, but the doors were all locked. The pictures had been set on the floor. It was crazy. But the last house that we had before this one didn't have that, but it just didn't have that was a rental house. The house we owned before didn't necessarily have that. Plus it was in the HOA, and the HOA was kind of a Nazi HOA. And I didn't really enjoy that. So I just think part of me just didn't enjoy living there. But once we bought this property, I mean, from the moment we walked on it for the first time, it was like, oh, this place has some really good vibes. It feels right, feels like it could be home. And it's kind of grown ever since. And so every year we do a little bit more around the house. We have a guy who is our landscaper who helps do that. And he does great concrete work. We have some concrete walls in the back that look like actual stone rocks. But we did this last summer, built an future outdoor kitchen area with a little path that my wife had wanted through the rock garden. She calls it the rock garden because there's a lot of rocks with moss on it, and the moss stays year round on them. But that little path that goes through the rock garden, and I built a couple bridges on the paths, one over to the horses pasture, but the other bridge was at the end of the pathway around the rock garden to go over the little dry creek that we have for the drainage and onto the patio. And one of my favorite things to do is in the morning, I'll get up and I'll feed the horses, and I just walk down and around that path, and it's quiet, and you hear the birds. We have turkeys, so you can hear the turkeys. We hear the ducks on the pond. We hear the geese squawking out there. There's usually walk quiet enough, and there's several deer that are on the back part of the property that don't get spooked off. And that is, one of my favorite ways of I use it as my start to the day. My get centered, my get ready to go out to the day. But, when I walk out there in the evening, it's a great way to slow down and just let the land kind of calm me a little bit. And, I walk around. Of course, I'm going to check the property, check the fences, make sure everything's stilled where it needs to be. The horses haven't torn down a fence yet or anything like that in the front pasture. But yeah, this property has a way of it's got that Zen feeling of it, that peace around it, that when you're walking around, if you spend enough time here, which some people do, some people don't, the kids have, but we have friends that come over. We have one couple who actually will come up from their house in Woodland once in a while and stay the night in one of the extra rooms, and they could probably vouch for it. But just being up here on the property out there and walking around and listening to the nature around you. I mean, that's why, part of the reason that I love the outdoors and doing camp and going camping and all that is that reason. Get the nature. Anybody who goes outdoors and enjoys that stuff knows what I'm talking about. If you haven't had an opportunity to slow down and listen to the symphony of the land around you, I mean, some people I know don't have that luxury because they may be in a city or apartment complex or something like that. But get out, find some place that's out there and try to get there early in the morning so you can catch the sunrise, or in the evening when the sun is setting. That is when nature comes alive. It's not in the dead of the night. It's not in the heat of the day. It's morning, dusk, and dawn. And that's true no matter what you're doing outdoors. If you want to catch nature, that's when you want to do it. But, the Friday nights are my nights, and I've said it before. They got a little bit of a ritual that I've established. I got to admit, I've been off of it for the last couple weeks. Not because I wanted to, but just because life happens, and I haven't been on it. And that reset at the end of the week is so important for me because I've learned a few things in the years I've been doing this. And one of the best things I've ever done, turned off my work emails when I get home. I don't look at them. I don't have a work email app on my phone. I don't get alerted when there's work emails that hit the phone. None of that. And they all get turned off. And from just a quality of life standpoint, not having that constant reminder that there's work to be done. Because some guys work all hours of the night. Some guys work all hours of the weekend. They don't take days off. And I used to be that guy. I used to be the one who would email people at, 9 o'clock at night, 8 o'clock at night, 4 o'clock on Sunday. I stopped doing that. Man. That was eating me up. It was not healthy. My blood pressure was high. I was overweight at the same time. And it was just stressing me out like you wouldn't believe. And that was probably one of the best things that I've done. The other thing that I've actually started doing too is getting off my phone. Putting the phone down, not being on it all day, all hours of the evening when I'm at home, reading a book, not even watching TV, just enjoying the quiet with my wife and the peace. And that's my Friday night rituals, is literally an extension of that. We'll come home, we'll chat, the two of us, because there's nobody at home, which I will say I love that there's nobody at home. Just because there's a feeling of success that kids have semi-launched, I guess. But we'll talk, and then I'm going outside. I try to invite her every time because there's nobody I enjoy spending time with more. But there's nights that I go out there by myself because it's cold. And I know that's why she stays inside, because it's cold. On the warm nights, she'll go outside. But if it's cold outside, she's not going outside. But I'll go out there, throw a sweatshirt on or a jacket, and I will have a cigar, which I'm down to 2 now. And the cigars are a couple years old now. And that started with the guys when we were golfing. Go back a couple episodes and you'll hear about the guys in the fantasy football and all that jazz. But it started with them when we were on one of our golf trips. And we had cigars while we were golfing. And then with the cigar, I'll have a glass, and it's usually one of the only times I drink during the week. It's either a glass, maybe 2 on a Friday night, unless we're going out with friends on Saturday or Sunday night, in which case I might partake in an alcoholic beverage then. But it'll be a glass of whiskey or a glass of rum or some variation of that with a mixer in it. And I've really, got to enjoy that because I'm turn on a little bit of music, nice and low, fire up the fire pit, and smoke a cigar and drink a drink and let the weight of the world just kind of roll off the shoulders for an hour or 2. I mean, it's not like forever, but for an hour or 2, it's just like I'm going to enjoy something else that God gave us on this planet to enjoy, and let that be the reset, the end of the week. It's the end of the work week. It's usually been long work weeks, more often than not. On occasion, we have a light week, but I'm not talking about those ones. Some of those long weeks, you're working 50, 60 hours a week. I'm leaving the house at 6:30, 6:45 in the morning, and when we're busy, I'm getting home around 6:30 at night. So they're 12-hour days, and that's a long day. I'm not saying that I'm unique in that either. Please don't take it that way. I know that there's a lot of people who work long days, and there's a lot of people who work longer days. But I'm just saying that I'm 50 years old, and those 12-hour days, when you stack them up for 2-3 weeks in a row, they get to you. That ritual is my reset. We get away from the work week as it was, take a couple hours, chill, reset, and get ready for the work on the weekend, because that's literally what it is around here. It's the work on the weekend. And you know what shows up in the quiet there in the evenings? You could probably guess. I mean, take 5 seconds and imagine what you'd think about. What goes in your brain? Work week's done. Smoking a cigar. Having a drink. What's going to go through your head during that time? Listening to the music. Maybe you'll sing along with the song. Maybe it gives you a chance to think of stuff other than work. For me, it's a time to think about the kids. How are the kids doing? They're all grown up, but they're still my kids. You're never going to stop being a parent. So I spend time thinking about them, thinking about the projects that need to be done over the next couple of days, because, like I said, the weekend is just another couple of days for working. Around the house, though, I'm not getting paid for that. I'll think about camp And what's going on with camp? How's the training going? How are my junior counselors coming along? What do we have to work on for that to make an amazing week for all the kids that go to camp? Because when you're just sitting out there in the quiet, enjoying the evening or listening to the music, some nights it's loud, some nights it's not. And, you kind of let go and you let the world surround you and envelop you. There's a definite feeling of gratitude for this place, gratitude towards being alive, for the people that I have in my life that are supportive when I need support. And there's things that you think about, what could I do better tomorrow? Where did I screw up this week? Can't tell you how many times I've had that thought. Where did I mess up? What can I do to fix it? How can I be better? And, a lot of decisions get made during the day, but during the night when you slow down, you can understand them. Sometimes they're the right decisions. Sometimes they're the wrong decisions. They're never all right or all wrong. It's never everything, but that is my time to kind of reset. So anyways, it's good example that even, the king needs quiet now and again. It helps my family get a more calm version of me. And I've been running on pretty high octane lately. So I do apologize to the family. If you haven't got the calm version of me lately, last month or so, it's been pretty ragged around here. But spaces, like the back porch. Yeah, I hope everybody has a back porch. You can just go chill. Might be a library. It might be a den. It might be, outdoor kitchen space. Someplace to just get away from all of the weight of the world, even if it's for a half an hour. Even if it's just to walk down the path through the rock garden in the morning and listen to the birds. Everybody benefits from that. And I know my family, my court of people doesn't need the frantic king. It needs the focus king. And that's a theme throughout my podcast. And one of my goals of every day is not to be a frantic king, which I've had those moments. They're not my best, most shiny moments. But I try to be a focus king. So let's move on to a royal decree here. And don't know that we need a lot of conversation around this one. It's pretty straightforward. And if you get it, you get it. If you don't, then I'm going to read it twice for you. Here you go. Royal Decree, Episode 7, Season 2. A wise king builds his kingdom during the day and protects his peace at night. A wise king builds his kingdom during the day and protects his peace at night. It took me 50 years to figure that out. Maybe 49. If I don't count the years as a little bitty 8-pound, 3-ounce baby King Roberto. Yeah, took me a while to figure that one out, but hopefully you get it. So tonight, court is coming to you from the modified King's Lair. The travel trailer is waiting. It should be back up and running in the next episode or two. We're heading out to Oklahoma for the weekend for a celebration of marriage. Not anybody in my family, but the Queen has a cousin who has a kid who's getting married. So we're going to go check it out. And it's a black tie wedding. Black tie optional wedding, but come on. I'm the king. Of course I'm going to wear the black tie. Probably make an episode out of the trying on the suits after losing some weight and finding out they're all too big. But, not every night in the kingdom here is dramatic. Sometimes it's just fire, quiet porch, and a reset before tomorrow. And with that, I will confess to you that is not tonight because we're recording a podcast tonight. There's no fire, there's no portion, there's no reset. It's go, baby, go. But you know what? That leaves you with a focused king and one who will see you next week. King Roberto from the King's Court saying goodbye.